Hi, Hunter Hastings here. Today's subject is Agile, but not in a way you've ever considered it before. Agile is usually defined in some kind of collective fashion, the aspect of a team or a firm that sweeps away obstacles in a collaborative sprint towards highly defined customer outcomes. That's great, that's terrific, it's high achievement. But what we're going to find out today is that Agile can be a personal, individual property, in fact, an individual responsibility. We can be more or less agile, and it's up to us to figure that out and to maximize it. And being agile individually helps you to be part of a more agile system through making more agile contributions.
This is the Value Creators Podcast. Value creation is the sole purpose of any business and every business, and for all of us as entrepreneurs. Listen to great value creators as they share their successes, trials, and lessons learned. Join us as we explore how to think as value creators, how to act as value creators, and how to view business through the lens of value creation.
Our guest today is Josefine Campbell. She's an executive coach, a corporate consultant to some of the largest multinational companies in the world. She's a jiu-jitsu champion, and she's also the author of a book called Barometer, Manage Personal Energy, Not Just Time and Money. She has some insights into personal performance and management and leadership, which I find to be quite unique. Josefine, welcome to the Value Creators Podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We're going to talk about Agile today and a lot of other things through the lens of your book, the Power Barometer, and we'll get into all the useful analysis and tools you have there. But you think about Agile in a different way. In business, it's often associated with teams and companies figuring out how to remove obstacles to collective performance in the pursuit of a goal. You include that, but you also say that we should focus on managing our personal energy. And the reason for managing personal energy is so we can be more agile.
Yeah.
So let's start with that term as you see it, Josefine. Agile as personal energy. Give us the basics.
Yeah, so in my book, Agile is used to describe a mental state of mind. And I also refer to the Agile toolbox, Agile processes and methodologies that you are mentioning. But my point is to be able to use those processes and tools most efficiently, you need the mindset too. And as I have a background in business and as a martial artist, I was quadruple national champion in jiu-jitsu. I learned something about staying agile, even though there's a lot of pressure on you. The term agile has been used in sports for decades. And basically, it means to be flexible, to be smooth, to respond in the most desirable way in the moment. So in a battle, for example, or in a challenging, difficult situation with a lot of stake at work, you could easily go into reaction mode and be aggressive or flight. But it's not how you win. Have you watched Karate Kid, the movie?
Yes, I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you remember Mr. Miyagi? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Mr. Miyagi, he's a sensei, Japanese sensei.
Yeah.
He's a martial artist. And can you imagine him being aggressive and go crazy and go wild?
No, always calm and objective.
Exactly. And that's what you need to do as well in business. And using the agile methodologies and processes, or just dealing with any other thing that is challenging in business, difficult collaborations, uncertainties, making radical innovation, dealing with conflicts, whatever. It takes for you to have an agile mind, to be able to stay calm and cool and give best possible response, which is appropriate at that time, not just a reaction, which is what people tend to do. They tend to just react.
So let's weave energy into this, Josefine.
Yeah.
There's a great insight in your book. It said the brain runs on energy, so we'd better manage that energy as it gives us our cognitive capabilities. So how do we manage our energy? What's the active part of that?
Yeah, so you manage your personal energy by being attentive to it and taking good care of yourself, just like any athlete would do. So working in business is demanding, and the brain runs on energy. energy is the fuel of the brain. The brain uses 20% of your personal energy. It's a lot. The brain only takes up like 3 to 4% of your body mass. So, what would an athlete do? Right? An athlete would make sure you get enough sleep. An athlete would make sure to get the right nutrition. And then what I'm saying also is that at work, that's where we spend most of our time. What we do at work also can give or take energy. And as we spend so many hours at work, we should be attentive to how we spend energy at work, how we spend other people's energy, how a manager would spend the energy of an organization. I think everybody are familiar with the concept of being in a meeting that drains you. You could feel very well when you enter the meeting, and once you leave, you just feel drained. Or the concept of having some colleagues or partners with whom you collaborate so well. So every time you talk together, you leave energized. Right? Have you tried that? Yeah. So I find that most people have had these experiences, and they're true. They're as true as the experiences you had. So we should start paying attention to what kind of behavior drains people and what kind of behavior infuses the people we collaborate with energy. Okay, that's how we create good collaboration and engagement and better decisions and innovation and agile processes.
And also, the other thing I took away looking on the negative side, Josephine, which I thought was a big insight, conditions like depression and stress and anxiety and what you call loss of engagement, they're energy problems. We should see them in that light. They're energy drained, as you said. So we should be thinking about that too. What's my current energy state?
Yeah. So what I find is that when people get severe stress, when they get sick from stress, very often they have been drained for years. And you can be drained in various ways. And I often see that it's a combination of getting drained. So it could be that you are trespassing your personal boundaries and your values for years. So let me give an example. A manager who has quality and teamwork as top values. Okay, so it's core principles for that person to feel that this person has integrity and feel like okay with him or herself. And if that person is an organization where she or he is being pushed to drop things on the floor all the time in a way that she or he knows that it will hurt people they collaborate with, it will give them extra work and they're already under pressure, that will feel like personal boundaries are being trespassed. Other things that can drain our energy could be being in a toxic environment where people don't treat each other with respect. It could be, lack of sleep, lack of breaks, just little breaks. It could be a type of work which is completely against who you are. So some types of work will give one person energy and they will drain other people from energy. It's also about making those matches. And, of course, we cannot only do fun things with people we love. Sometimes we have to do something that is draining or work with people who are not giving us energy, but the balance has to be right. Overall, the balance has to be right. Otherwise, it's like a slow death.
Taking it to the business level, Josephine, you say that a company should invest in the mental, creative, and collaborative capacity of the people working there. So that's an interesting concept, that this is an investment. It improves the intellectual property and the asset base, the human resources of the company. How do you tell companies to invest in these elements, the personal energy of their people?
Yeah, in people. So if they look at their accountings, most companies will see that one of the big expenses they have, it's people. If they look at what they do, they will see some of the most important assets they have are people and their brains. That's what they invest in. That's what creates value, right? And you can see that if you lose people and if you have a high turnover rate of employees, it's quite expensive. Then you have less turnover per employee, right? Investing in people's energy is investing in people's brains, in their capacity to do great work, in their capacity to collaborate and do great work together, in their capacity to be innovative, and in engagement, retention. The companies where people's energy is something that is on the mind of the upper management, you will see that people stay longer and that they over time create more value. The idea of that you can push people or scare people to create value is a very old fashioned short term thinking, and it doesn't really align with today's world where we have so much uncertainty, where most employees have to think when they work. Even like if you do manual labor, you will still have to think when you do your work. You have to be attentive not to make errors or not put things together in the wrong way. There's still health risks, things that you have to mind. It takes energy.
One of the concepts that we have that I think ties into that, Josephine, is flow, that you encourage flow in individuals, which is the enjoyable focus on what you're doing and the feeling that you're good at it. And you can have flow in teams and flow in companies. So it sounds like you're aligned with that you can achieve that frictionless flow.
Yes, that's definitely one of the positive way this can go. Flow. You know, if people don't get disturbed, then they can go into flow. So that's one of the ways. But you can also just get energy from doing something that feels meaningful to you. Even though you do it in a short period of time, that doesn't allow you to get in real flow, in deep flow, just for things to feel meaningful in a way where you can see that your work makes sense, that you feel okay when you leave work because it's been a good day. You had a good time with the people you work with. You did meaningful work. You created value. I think at the end of the day, a lot of people will feel satisfaction from doing something that makes sense, right? And you're right, flow is wonderful. If you do deep work, if you get into flow, then you can generate energy while working. But it takes about 20 minutes to get into flow. And the minute you get disturbed, the minute that get a little notification pops up, then you're out of flow again.
Yeah, there's a lot of work being done in research on productivity of software developers. There's a big research project at Microsoft, and they boiled it down to, did I have a good day? And which sounds ridiculous, but that's the way that a software developer can assess their productivity. And one of the great detriments to not having a good day is the number of interruptions.
Yeah.
Because a software developer needs flow to keep working on their project. So
software developer have to juggle a lot of information in their head, and very often they need to do complex tasks. They need to be in flow to be able to go really, really deep and concentrate. And it can almost feel like physical pain when you get interrupted, especially after the fifth time. It really takes a lot of energy. It drains to get interrupted when you do deep work.
It's an interesting discovery.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of tools in your book, Josephine. We can give people links to download images of them. It's hard to do on an audio podcast, but you've got an awareness matrix. So you said that awareness is critical here, awareness of your energy situation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 4-box matrix. It's high energy at the top, low energy at the bottom. It's all wrapped in context. I don't know whether can you describe it in words when people can't see the graphic?
Yes. So you have a matrix with 4 boxes. So there's a horizontal line and there's a vertical line. And the vertical line is energy, personal energy, high or low. And high energy just doesn't have to be that you're accelerated and euphoric. High energy, you can be very calm when you have high energy, like Mr. Miyagi, and how I was trained to be and act when I was practicing Japanese martial art, when I was practicing jiu-jitsu. So it can be very still to have high energy, but you're very clear. Like your mind is clear and you have all the resources you need to perform at your best. And when your energy is low, you're drained of energy, but it can either be in what I call the green zone or the red zone of the matrix. So on the right side, you have the green zone. That's where it's okay to be. And we have a box there which is called mellow. And it's okay to be mellow or tired. But then what you got to do? You got to rest, right? Because if you go on being tired or mellow and you don't recharge your battery, then you can get into the red zone. And in that side of the matrix, we have a box called fragile. And that takes us to explain the difference between what I call ready or hijack. So that takes us into the horizontal line of the matrix. So when you're ready, your mind is clear and you can use all of the cognitive functions that you normally on a good day will have available. So you can see things from different perspectives. You can be creative. You can think logic. You can, but then you would say, but I think logically all the time, right? But that's our self image. So people, human beings, no matter how humble we are, our self image tends to be aligned with how we are when we are our best. When we become hijacked, that's when we start to react. That's when we start to become unaware. We actually use our ability to have self-awareness and to have empathy. So we will be kind of blind to what goes on around us, but we're going to be unaware in that moment. And that's when you are hijacked. That's when you're in the red zone. And it happens all the time. I'm sorry to say that to be in the red zone is more normal in modern work life than it is to be in the green zone. Well, of course, it depends on who you are, but it's quite normal to be a lot of time in the red zone. We can measure it. I have a device we use to measure it. You can see it on the sympathetic or the parasympathetic nerve system, which one is predominant, and we can measure that by measuring the heart viability rate.
Well, before you get there, Josephine, because I'd like to dig into that, the left-hand side of the horizontal, the right-hand side is ready, so you can be mellow and ready. I like that thought, but the left-hand side is hijack. What hijacks us? Do we hijack ourselves? Do other people hijack us? Is it the situation, the context? What hijacks us?
Yeah, so we have hijacked in a position to ready in the horizontal line. So when you are hijacked, that is when your survival instinct kicks in. It's the amygdala in the brain where the fight-flight response is located that takes over your behavior, your body functions, and you're completely unaware of it. And most people do it. It happens to most people several times a day, a lot. And so you will react accordingly to your instinct. So some people have an instinct of fighting. So that means you will start acting, doing things, telling things. Some people will flight, which could be on avoiding acting. It would be avoiding people. And some people will freeze. And that's, for example, the kind of moments where people tell you something or they ask you something. And then afterwards you say, why didn't I talk back? Or why didn't I say anything? Or why didn't I explain this better? In those moments, you froze. And it's something that happens to you cognitively. So it's all you can do. You're not in control in those moments. It's kind of an autopilot running your behavior and your thinking, but we are unaware.
But you said we could be aware of that. Are we only aware after the event? Can I be aware in the moment? Can I say, my amygdala's being hijacked. I got to stop this. Can we be aware of it or not?
Not really. Like once you're really hijacked, you lose your ability to be aware. So you can be aware of it afterwards, or you can be aware of when you start to slide towards being hijacked. So you will get some physical or mood responses. It could be that you feel irritated. It could be that your cheeks become red. It could be that you feel heat. It could be that your heart stops pumping. It could be that your breath changes. And you can train yourself to detect those signals. I have a chapter on that in my book. There's a list of body signals, so you can start assessing which signals apply to myself, and then start practicing awareness on when does those signals start to give me a message about that I'm about to be hijacked. That's what my sensei had trained me to do. So when I was going to do a championship, when I was in a battle or doing a competition, I would have attention on what is happening around me and what is happening inside myself. And once I could feel that my breath would become faster and more superficial, I would intentionally start slowing and deepening my breath to prevent getting hijacked, to stay ready.
Fascinating. There's another tool in your book, and maybe that's what you're referring to, where you can quantify this situation a little bit. It's called the Power Barometer.
Yeah. So
Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it works and how to use it?
yeah, so that's a tool that you can use to prepare yourself for performance and for well-being, more success, in the sense that you do a check-in on yourself and you use it to quantify your personal energy level in different situations. So you can use it at the start of the day. You could use it at the end of the day. We can compare it to the Microsoft study you mentioned, where like how good was the workday. So instead they could have said, okay, so on a scale from a 0 to 100, where 0 is empty and 100 is full, what does my energy barometer say now? But what I encourage people to do is to take this tool into their teams. I encourage people to do this practice collectively. At the beginning of a meeting, for example, everybody would do a check in. It will increase everybody's self awareness about own capability, own state of minds, level of reflection, and then share it. And all you have to share is a number. Of course, if you feel like sharing more, like what's behind the number, you can do that and it will create more openness and understanding of each other. But sometimes, it's enough to know that this person I'm meeting with for some reason that has nothing to do with me is just on 30% of the energy, even though we're at the start of the day. So if he or she looks a little weird, it's probably not something to do with me. I shouldn't take it personal.
So a couple of things there, Josephine. One, that's brilliant because it's an outlook that we like in economics called subjective quantification. So the assessment is subjective, but you can put a number on it. You say, hey, I'm a 6. What are you?
Yeah, exactly. Because you do subjective quantification, it's easier for people to talk about things that could be otherwise very fluffy.
Yeah, it's clever. And then you compare them. So I'm a 3 and you're a 6. That gets us into an exchange, right? A conversation. How can we fix this? Or what does it mean? Or how are we going to deal with this?
Well, it's not so much about comparing with each other. It's more about how it changes within yourself and how it contributes to the overall energy. So you can actually walk into a meeting with 30% of energy and you can leave it with 80. If you're not trying to do things that you can't do with only 30% of energy, if you're aware of the energy in the room, in the meeting. So we don't want those meetings where everybody feels drained. They're a waste of time and resources, and you should rather stop those meetings. So we have a case in the book, a real case from a high performing team in one of the top 3 consulting firms. And they promised each other that if they can feel the energy in the meeting is getting low, they will speak up about it. It could be they're talking about the wrong thing. It could be the right people are not around the table. It could be that the meeting is too long. Being aware of the energy in the room between people is a very good way of being more efficient and dealing with things that potentially could develop into problems or conflicts. So, you won't even get anywhere near it.
Yeah, so the Power Barometer is a real tool. We can use it every day in every meeting and every situation. Yeah?
It's very easy to use. It's free. Everybody can bring it with them always. There's one for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. There's
another nuance to that, another layer, which I noted in the book, which is it's a personal responsibility to do that. You got to be responsible for your own energy, being aware of it, and also in that meeting, it's your responsibility to manage it or preserve it or add to it or sense it. Taking responsibility for your own energy. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it has massive effect.
It forces you to be conscious in the first place, and then it kind of forces you to use the barometer in the second place.
Yeah, and it prevents people from having destructive behaviors. If they take responsibility, you're not going to start doing things in a meeting that is destructive.
There's so much in your book, Josephine. You now take it to another level and you say, so one of the energy drains is stress, and an antidote to stress is ensuring that you live and work in alignment with your own values.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've brought in values and personal values and team values and shared values. Go into that a little bit more for us, the role of values.
Yeah, remember the example I used before where I say you have a manager for whom teamwork and quality is top values, and he or she is being pushed to drop things on the floor and knowingly that it will hurt other teams within the company. and the quality of the work. That is actually from a real case, and that person was not aware of that quality and teamwork were top values. But as teamwork is a top value, that person was trying to be flexible, right? And trying to do what the manager was asking for. And that can be so draining. For someone else, it could have been fine, but not for this person. So it's also a quality to be quality oriented and teamwork, right? We don't want to violate what is most precious to people. It's like violating people's spirit. And we all have a responsibility for taking care of our own top values, but we can only do that if we're aware of what they are. And then once we can speak that up and once we can live those values, if we share it with the people we work with, there's a limit to how much you should get pushed to do that. Otherwise, you should change job or there should be another position. Maybe there was a need for a quality manager in that company. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. And in fact, I'm going to probe a little deeper because it was so fascinating that I think you said top 3 values, and you gave a long list in the book as stimulus or to choose from. We have a system, we use an old one called the Rokeach value system. There are 19 highest values. So things like family security or sense of achievement, things like that. You have a much longer list, which was really thoughtful and helpful, but you say find your top 3. So how do I do that? How do I go about finding my top 3?
You have to pick and choose, and it can take time because if I asked you to find 10, it would probably be easy. The hard part is prioritizing some over others. But I'm serious. You have to stick to 2 or 3 values. That's the hard part. And they're easy to navigate from once you have those 3 values. I just had a coaching conversation earlier on today, and I was discussing something very important with this executive. And then I said, because it was a difficult situation, difficult choice to make. And I said, as long as you stay with your top values in this situation, as long as you don't trespass them, you're going to get somewhere good. At the end of the day, it cannot go wrong. You're not going to lose yourself, but you're also going to do work and get to places which are aligned with what you want because they're aligned with your top values.
I didn't go through the exercise, but I will do it. I'll see if I can find my top 3. Do you know what yours are?
Yes, I do.
Will you share them?
Yeah, energy, family, and impact.
Well, you certainly have energy, Josefine.
Yeah, I know. And I enjoy it. I enjoy having a lot of energy. There are people who have a lot of energy like I do. We can take a lot of space if we are not at peace with that we have all this energy. So, having a lot of energy is also something you have to embrace. Then it becomes a quality and nice for other people to be around.
Well, that's part of your awareness function, right? Be honest about your own energies. On top of all of this, Josephine, there's philosophy in your book, a lot of philosophy. I picked out a little Kierkegaard where you said, use this phrase, life is lived forward but understood backwards. And I understand the thought, I think, but that doesn't sound like a fixable problem. I'm understanding life backwards. I had that bad meeting. I had bad energy. That's over and done. How do I live that forwards? I got to change, I suppose.
You got to remember to take a little time to reflect, right? Otherwise, you're just going to keep on repeating the same bad meetings. If you reflect after that one bad meeting you mentioned and you change your behavior in the next, it's not going to be wasted. It's so much easier to reflect on things that already happened than anticipate. Sometimes we just got to have some experiences. Sometimes we got to make some mistakes. But if they are converted into learnings, then it's not so bad, is it?
That's an inspiring thought, actually. It wasn't wasted if I learn from it and do better in the future. Here's another angle that we struggle a lot with, Josephine, and I'm sure you've got special insights into it, is change. We're always advocating change all the time. Businesses, continuous change. But there's another element to that, is people don't like change. They like it when things are the same or stable. Do you come across that? Do you have a way of channeling energy for change?
Yes, definitely. And, actually, I don't think it's true that people don't like change, but change has to be done in a way that is manageable for people. And they need to have enough energy to do the change, right? So if people are drained, And if a lot of things are being done in the name of change, and some of those things are rather unpleasant, and it does take energy to readjust. So if it's overdone, then people stop liking the change, or then they become change resistant. It's a real problem because today the world is moving really fast and we need to make a lot of changes really fast. But there's a limit to the capacity of many human beings, cognitive capability to deal with the change. So when you do the same things as you've always done, for example, if you take up your keys and you open your door and you put your keys to wherever you normally put them, you use certain part of the brain. You can be unaware while you do it. That's why a lot of people, they don't know where they left their keys. When you are unaware while you do things, you actually use less energy. You smile. Are you one of those who leave your keys all over?
I often lose them.
Yeah, now you know why. So if you have to be aware of where you put your key every time you walk in the door, you have to spend more energy. You use more fuel. So the brain, it's a very sophisticated machine. It will try to save fuel. It will try to save energy. That's why we become unaware. So of course, if you have to do a lot of new work, a lot of changes, you have to use more energy than if you're doing the same things as you usually will do. And it can become too much. So when you do a lot of changes, you have to infuse them with a lot of energy. And you got to give people time to rest. It's actually also part of Agile, where you do all these sprints.
Right. High energy.
Yeah, it's high energy. But what they very often forget is between a sprint, you need to take a rest, right? Can you imagine a professional athlete going to run a marathon, practicing the day before? No, they'll go rest. The day before you do a marathon, you rest. And it's the same thing at work. Sometimes we got to rest.
Yeah, got it. One way to wrap all of this energy and change and everything you're talking about together at the company level is the concept of culture.
Mm-hmm.
And we're a bit nervous about that. Is that a manufactured concept out of business school, or is it a real way to get shared values and shared energy together on a for a shared purpose and shared meaning, as you've talked about? You do use the word culture in the book, but let me ask you, can that agile culture be developed? Can managers or leaders actively develop a culture for people?
Certainly they can. And we have a real case in the book that you can read. Mm-hmm. Yes, it can. It's all about doing things for enough time and for people to be happy about it, for it to go on and be part of how you do things without thinking about it, like things you start doing automatically. It starts to sit in the walls and then it becomes culture. Things you do without questioning it. That's culture.
There's a lot of science around systems that speaks to that the system can have its own energy and its own way of moving forward. It includes the people, but it's also supplemental and additional to the people.
Yeah. So what I think is very smart, that manager, we call her Stephanie, who has made energy part of the culture in that organization, she has created a system among people who were in favor of the system, people who liked the idea to start with. So instead of trying to break down the barriers and win over the people who were against, she would focus on the people that actually embraced it and thereby creating a movement. It's a kind of a flow thinking, right? She went with the flow. Yeah, she would put her seeds in the fertile soil, not drop them on the rocks. And, then it can grow, then it can blossom. And it does take time. Yes, it does. But at the point where there's enough people who like it, so it becomes a norm, then it starts turning into a culture.
As we said at the beginning, it's a considered investment. You said it takes time, but it's an investment because you get a return out of it. You get better corporate performance for everybody.
Yeah, but there's a pretty quick payback time because it doesn't take a lot of time. You can do it pretty quickly and you get the payback already on the first meeting because everybody's going to be more efficient at the first meeting where you do it.
Yeah, good point.
It's going to be better meetings.
There's a wonderful emotional touch at the end for managers and leaders. You've talked about energy and agile and some of the challenges and hijacks and all of that kind of stuff. And then we say, but you can smile through this, the challenge and the turmoil. You smile because you find meaning in the madness. So the responsibility, freedom, and influence in your own hands is something to smile about, something to be happy about. Let's finish there. Tell us about how to smile through the madness.
Yeah, so you always have different perspectives. When you're in a situation, it's not like there's one truth. Your eyes are not a video camera. If you think that what you see and what you hear, that's exactly how the world is, you need to add to the equation that our brain will decode the signals you get through your eyes and ears and other senses, and then they will make sense of it. That's how our brain works. So there are so many realities. Really, why don't you pick the one that gives you energy and progress and that is constructive? That's basically the message. If you put in a little effort, if you take a little time to reflect, you will be able to see different perspectives in a situation. I mentioned a manager who will put herself not just in the shoes, but on the seat around the meeting table of every person she's meeting with, each and every one of her stakeholders. She will try to think and feel like how she imagined they will think and feel in that situation to see the thing from different perspectives. So basically, she could pick any chair she liked, right? And make it her own. And so can you.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, your book is brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it. Josephine, it's called The Power Barometer, so we'll link to that at powerbarometer.com. It's about managing your personal energy. So let me read the title properly. Power Barometer, manage personal energy, not just time and money. It's helpful for everybody. I know you're a consultant to multinational companies, so it's being applied at the highest possible level, but I think every individual could benefit from it too. So Josephine, thank you very much today. We'll post those links and we'll encourage everybody to read your book.
Thank you so much, Hunter. Thank you so much.
This has been another episode of the Value Creators Podcast. Thanks for listening. You can visit thevaluecreators.com for links and resources related to this episode. And check out hunterhastings.com for more content on entrepreneurial business management based on value creation principles.